The problem with weed is when weed becomes the problem, and this is often the case in the presence of addiction. And in today's video, we're going to talk about exactly how to identify if weed or cannabis is becoming a problem for you. If you're new to the Addiction Mindset Recovery Coaching YouTube channel, at the end of today's video, be sure to check out the pinned comment or the video description to learn more about our paid and free Addiction Mindset Recovery Coaching programs. The problem with weed is when weed becomes the problem. And weed becomes the problem when it stops working for you. Everyone, myself included, had smoked or smokes weed for a purpose, generally speaking. They smoke weed to be less anxious. They smoke weed to be less depressed. They smoke weed socially when it comes to socializing. They smoke weed to escape or to avoid the boredom. They smoke weed for creativity. Generally speaking, when someone is consuming a substance, there is a purpose behind that substance use. And I'm not going to say that there's anything inherently wrong with that. That is not a problem. And to be honest, if you're consuming weed to help with anxiety or depression or creativity, and it's working well for you, this is not the video for you. I would encourage you to keep smoking. But what you should do is you should pause and ask yourself, okay, I'm smoking weed to manage depression and anxiety. Am I less depressed? Am I less anxious? If I'm smoking weed for creativity, am I executing on all the creative thoughts that I'm having? If I'm smoking weed to manage the boredom, you have to assess your life and ask yourself, am I less bored? And I'll give you another example of this. Let's say you had a friend and this friend was trying to lose weight, okay? And they've been on a diet for a few weeks, a few months, or even a few decades. And let's say this person hasn't lost any weight, they haven't built any muscle, and they've only hit the gym twice in the last few years. If anything, maybe they've gained a few pounds. What would you think if you were talking to that friend about what they're doing? You would say, oh my gosh, this is ludicrous. This is outrageous. You might not say that to them because, you don't want to be rude or whatever, but you'd be like, this isn't working for you. And we have to ask ourselves the same thing when it comes to smoking weed, whether that's socially, recreationally, medicinally. Is the weed actually working and serving the purpose that you claim it is? Or have you fallen under the guise or the delusion, the facade of addiction, the manipulation of addiction? Do you think it's working, or is it actually working? Are you objectively having more fun in life? Are you objectively more social? Are you objectively and subjectively less anxious, less depressed? Because if it's working, not only should you feel this, but people around you should be able to see this as well too. And chances are, if this is the case for you, people are commenting like, hey, we've noticed you're more social, you're happier, what are you doing different? You look great type of thing. Okay, and if the answer is no, then this is the right video for you, because then I'm getting you to think about, is the weed working or is weed becoming a problem? Now, two more parts to this. If weed is becoming a problem and you're settling with the concept that weed is the best solution to the depression, the anxiety, the relationships, the social issues, the boredom, then what else in life might you be settling for? Because a lot of times in my experience smoking weed simply made me content with being depressed, with being anxious, with being bored. Weed made it easier for me to settle and remain complacent with where I was at. Now, when I quit weed, that changed. I no longer was comfortable with where I was at. I no longer wanted to settle, and I created massive change in my life through the process of sobriety and addiction recovery and the self-discipline that process requires, okay? So that'd be another question. If you are finding that you're relating to this, I want you to ask yourself, pause. Where else are you settling in life, and are you falling victim to becoming content under the delusion of weed addiction. Now, my third point would be is if the weed isn't working for you, if weed is becoming part of the problem, the stress of addiction to cannabis financially, the stress of addiction to weed on a person's relationships, the stress of addiction on a person's physical health, the potential procrastination when it comes to the execution of our creative thoughts and not getting results. These are all consequences, potential consequences of substance use, addiction disorders, okay? Whether it's to weed, alcohol, it could be nicotine, it could be pills, it doesn't matter. Are these aspects of your weed consumption actually making you more anxious, more stressed, more depressed, more bored, more isolated? Because this is when weed is no longer the solution to your problems, but when weed has become the problem. And under the delusion of addiction, we're now manipulated into continuing to smoke because this is what we've trained ourselves to do to deal with these problems, to manage these problems. Even though now weed may be adding to them or may be directly resulting in these problems in a person's life. So at the end of today's video, what you have to ask yourself is, am I settling or could I do better? Could I do better than smoking weed? Is there a better option out there for me when it comes to managing the depression, managing the anxiety? Am I running from something? Am I procrastinating on something? You have to ask yourself, could I do better than that drink of alcohol? Could I do better than that vape? Is there a better option out there for me? And if so, have I really put forth an effort to explore those other options? And if the answer is yes, I've put forth an effort, weed is actually making me less anxious, less depressed, less bored, less stressed, by all means, keep smoking. Like I said, I wouldn't tell you to stop, because I'm all about improving a person's quality of life, not derailing it. With or without substance use is irrelevant to me. But if you're sitting here and you're saying, you know what? Actually, yeah, the consequences of addiction are making me more anxious, more depressed, more stressed, and I seem to be coping with those emotions by smoking more weed because that's what I know best. And I am actually settling with a lot of areas in my life that I really shouldn't be content in, despite if you're making money, despite if you got physical health in your favor, maybe it's something else. Then this video relates to you. You have to pause and you have to ask yourself, is what I am doing actually working? Is smoking weed actually getting me the results that I am in pursuit of? Financially, emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, whatever. Is it actually giving me results? Or is it a facade? Is it a delusion crafted by addiction? That's the question. If you need help with this, be sure to check out the pinned comment. We have our Addiction Mindset Recovery Coaching School community. It's a group coaching community where we go live regularly and we help people quit. Great community. We have one-on-one coaching programs. We have our Kick It, Crave Less supplements to help with the cravings and the withdrawals when you initially quit. It's supplemental to all the mindset and all the lifestyle modification. And then we have the one-on-one coaching programs and the free 100-page PDF ebook, The Complete Guide on How to Quit Smoking Weed and Using Nicotine. I'll see you in the pinned comment or the video description to learn more about those resources. Until next time.